it's Zoe Hewlett here. I am talking about our new Pilates support portal that we've created online. It goes live in the middle of July, and the idea behind it was to allow people who maybe don't have access to expert help or somebody to bounce ideas off, or just want another viewpoint and just maybe some new ideas on how to manage different things. Just to have that sort of forum available. It is working online, so it is via sort of a membership portal. So you can hook in and out whenever you like. It's 24/7. There'll be basically some modules in there that you can just click on and have a look. So say for argument's sake, if you don't really know a lot about discs, or a disc prolapse as opposed to a disc that's been a little bit of a partial protrusion as opposed to a massive or an extrusion, what the differences are and what it means. What would you expect from somebody who's had a posterior bulge, so it's just come straight backwards, as opposed to one that's gone to a lateral bulge. And what kind of things are likely to aggravate them, what kind of things are likely to help them. And that's the aim. It's not to say, this is how you manage them fully, and you have to do it this way, and this is the right way forward. I'm a physio by trade, so I know my stuff and I know what I would do with clients. But it's really about giving you some medical based knowledge that is suitable for you in your practicing, for group sessions or private sessions, for clients that might come in. So, we all know these days no one's perfect. No one comes in and they're fantastic. They come in and they've got little aches and pains, they've got this and they've got that, and they expect you to modify for them. And you want to be able to modify with confidence. So, it would be great if you could say, they said, look, I've got a disc prolapse, it's a L4-5 level, it's a posterior lateral prolapse. It doesn't really bother me, but it gives me a few niggles every now and again. And you can go, yeah, know what that is. I know what type of things might aggravate it. I know what type of things might help it. And you're in a position of knowledge. And you can approach that client with confidence because you know what's going on. So while we're talking about discs, if we have somebody that is a disc person, you might find that, say their problem is a left-sided disc and it's a lateral bulge, they might find it really hard to go to the painful side because it feels like everything's getting squashed. But they might find it really easy to go to the non-painful side because then everything's opening up. So if I have a disc prolapse here and it's coming out laterally, if I squash it, I'm not going to like it very much. So if I go mermaid this way, I'm going to go, ouch. But if I go mermaid this way, I'm going to go, yeah, I like that. However, you might find if it's an acute or it's a something disc, actually encouraging the good way isn't the best thing for the client. And it's just little tidbits like that that we want to get out there. You don't need to be fully medically trained. It's not rocket science. You can go onto Dr. Google and you can look at everything. But what I want to do is make it a little bit more specific for you guys as Pilates instructors. So if you find that somebody does come in and say, I've got a disc prolapse and it's backwards, you know what that means. If you find that they're then doing, say, double leg kick, or they're doing anything that's prone and into swan and it's pinching, okay, maybe that's not great. Also, if they're then doing something that they do into forward flexion and they find that it's making them worse, your brain can go, okay, I understand why, let's maybe keep them upright. So that's really the main aim and the purpose of it. We do have, about 10 instructors that work with us here, and they can just call in and call through and say, what do I do about this? And one of the biggest thing is, people that can't find neutral. There's a lot of people who think that neutral is, I need to push my back into the ground. And that tends to be a big problem for people if they can't find neutral, because you are struggling then to push something uphill if they're not really sure where neutral is. So we will go through things like, what things are stopping you from being in neutral. Is it tight hamstrings because that's everyone's slumped and it's pulling you into a posterior tilt. So we'll cover things like pure hamstring stretching as opposed to hamstring and lower back and pelvis stretching. Also, pure hamstring testing. How can you be specific to testing hamstrings? So, if I'll take my mic off for 2 ticks and just show you on this back bed over here. What I'm going to do is show you when I test my hamstrings. If I'm cheating with my spine, what it looks like, and if I'm not cheating with my spine, what it looks like. So, bear with me 2 ticks. I'll try and yell so you can still hear. So if I'm doing a seated here, most people when they extend their leg, they'll do this. And what we're seeing there is that they're getting their legs straight, but they're doing it from a bit of lumbar tilt and a bit of pelvic tilt posteriorly. And what we want to see is, can they extend their legs? So I'll lift mine up here without the tip or without the curl. And that is more a pure hamstring test. So what we're seeing is that your knowledge and your skill base is going to develop, because what we'll do is go through basics like that. How can you tell if they have the right hamstring length, or are they just cheating? What is hip and pelvis dissociation? What does it look like? There's a whole heap of people that cheat when they're doing side splits on the reformer, because what they're doing is actually using their pelvis. So instead of actually getting pure disassociation, they're doing it this way. So again, we'll cover things like how to tell if they're doing it properly. Same thing with things like bent knee fallouts. A lot of people have problems with bent knee fallouts, but is it a problem where they can't do the movement because their adductors are tight? Or is it a problem where they just don't have enough control? So hopefully you'll get some things like tidbits on how to differentiate between the two. The other thing that most of us are really aware of these days is that everybody is so tight. We sit all the time, and everybody wants to release hip flexors because hip flexors are tight. But the thing is, hip flexors are generally short and weak. And it might be that you're trying to release and get their hip flexors to be quiet, where in actual fact what they are is actually short. They're not what we'd probably call overactive. They're probably what we would call tight and short. So you want to be able to differentiate. If you're trying to get somebody to release something and they don't want to let it go because that's the only thing holding them up, how do you tell? Is it their quads that are tight and it's your hip flexors that are tight? Or is it a mix of the two? So, we'll cover things like that within there, which is like a basic Thomas test. So you're able to differentiate, is it the hip flexors that we need to work on, or is it actually the quads that are stopping the movement? So commonly you'll see it, hips will come off the bed or pelvis will come off the bed when they're doing single leg kick, double leg kick. And what we want to be able to know is if they are doing single leg kick or double leg kick, what's going on? Is it that they have a problem with the hip flexor? Is it that they have a problem with the quads? And which one do we need to focus on? So, at the end of the day, it's going to make your practice a lot better. It's going to make your teaching a lot better. And we're hoping that, at the end of the day, that the quality of Pilates teachers and Pilates instructors and, potentially physios who are in the clinical space with clinical Pilates and rehab are a lot more well informed on what they do. I would sort of safely say that I'm not a purist, so I'll get that out there straight away. I'm not a classical trained physio or Pilates person or a purist to how Polestar works or how Stott works. I am somebody who thinks this person needs to move, and how can I get them to move well, and how can I achieve what they need to move within what I have, and fighting to keep people working the way that we want them to work, because that's the way we should, isn't quite how I run. I run with, this client needs to feel that they can move this way, and I want them to move first, and I want them to get the idea of how things are first, And once they work that out and they know what I'm after, then I can work on their technique. So, sometimes it works to just let people go, just let them move, just let them go with things, especially those who are maybe a bit more blokey, maybe people who have been in the gym a lot longer, and they're very used to that push and pull and they need something that moves them. And trying to get them to relax and do floaty stuff and think about a balloon rising is just not going to work. Maybe they're the kind of clients that we might give a little bit more active work too, so that they get the idea of moving against something else in the way that you want them to. And once they've got that idea of being able to move well, you can then tone that down to how you would like it to look. So that's probably the main reason for doing this, having a bit of support out there, because at the end of the day, wherever we train, whether again I'm a physio, but wherever we train in terms of our Pilates training or our beliefs or however things work, there's always some way that we can improve a client. I wish I could go back to treat clients that I treated 5 years ago and say, come back, because I did such a shit job 5 years ago, because I know so much more now. And that sort of skills and those knowledge and things like that is just stuff that we learn and we pick up. I've got umpteen ways, there's 20 ways to teach somebody to do a roll down. And what we're looking for is, what is the problem that that person has? What is it that they aren't able to do when they do the roll down? Is it that they're sliding their hips back? Is it that their hamstrings are tight? Is it that they don't have the articulation? And then there's ways to check that. You can check if somebody can articulate, can they do it with a seated like forward supine stretch? Can they move that way? If you take hamstrings out of it, do they move better? And it's just different ways of playing and a different way of thinking, instead of feeling that there's nowhere to bounce an idea from. So I'm actually really excited about our online support. I think it will be great. It would be fabulous to just get some different viewpoints and different ideas going, but also to have somewhere where people feel they can come and ask questions, and also, have a. I am medically trained, so if somebody comes in with a bursitis, I know what I should and shouldn't do straight away. I know what to be aware of straight away. And I'll see people who say, I've got a shoulder bursitis, and they're coming to class, and then I'll say, well, what are you doing? And they'll say, well, I've been doing side plank. And I'm like, oh my God, that's going to hurt. So no wonder your shoulder's sore. We have clients that come in and see us who come for physio, and they have the a disc problem, or they have a back problem, and we say to them, look, don't do anything overhead and don't do anything loaded overhead, because it's going to make you arch, and when you arch you load your spine, and that makes it worse, and that's why you're sore. So stay off that for 2 weeks. And then what we find happens is they've gone to their gym personal trainer, and the trainer said, it's all right, it'll be fine for your back. So they go ahead and do it, and then they come back and say, it's not working and you're not helping me. And the fact of the matter is, what they're not doing is they're not listening. So the big thing is making sure that you guys as instructors know what we're trying to do with you, that at the end of the day, we're trying to enhance your knowledge, and we're trying to give you a few more skills that we don't normally pick up along the way. Obviously, if you're stock trained, they do courses like special populations. If you're Polestar trained, they do a very good background into different ways of moving, and what your implications are for different exercises, what you should use them for, what you shouldn't use them, what contraindications might be for certain things as well. I'm not really familiar with some of the other trainings. I know specifically, I know those two because I've been through those. But I know that at the end of the day, it doesn't really cover the masses. I've been a physio for 25 years, and I'm always learning something. There's always something that I think, oh wow, that's really cool. Let's try that. Or oh wow, I didn't realize that worked quite as well if we do it this way. Or let's try this and see if it works. So that's more where I'm coming from, more giving you some scope, more giving you some ideas on what we tend to do in clinic that we know works. If you want to feel confident dealing with clients, if you have a knee replacement, what can't you do with them? If you have a hip replacement, what can't you do with them? If we have, somebody that has a winging scapula. What does that mean? What should you be working, and what does it look like, and what should you be looking for? Um, and probably the biggest thing that I've found working with people is that the main thought process is good. The main issues and what people are trying to get through is good. Probably the order in how they've done it has been a little bit different. So, we have a lot of or a lot of instructors that come through us who do their obs hours here, or they want, um, some of their self mastery hours done for various training organisations. So they do come through us. We've definitely listening to how they talk has been interesting, because they're working with people who are very similar to themselves. They're learning their skill, they're learning their craft, they're learning how to move, and what they want to do is say, look, can we come on board when we're done, and we'll teach all your intro classes, and we'll do all your basic stuff. And my thought process is, no, you need somebody who's experienced to do all your intro classes. Somebody who um, somebody who knows their stuff, to be able to get out of a client very quickly what you want, because you guys are practicing with people when you're training who know everything. You're working out what's going on, you're trying to get clients to move, and you're just practicing on each other. And then you go into the big bad world, and there's all these clients that can't move for toffee. And at the end of the day, you want clients to have a good movement experience. You want clients to be coming in and going, yep, okay, that's how I need to do it. That's how things move. And I will always put somebody who's experienced on for the intro work, because if you've got a room full of people, whether it be 2 people, whether it be 10 people, they will need to learn what you want them to do, and you need to be able to alter how you teach very quickly to deal with the 10 people or the 2 people or however many is your intro work. You want them to get the message quickly, and the more skills you have and the more knowledge you have and the more you go, yep, that one's actually using his hip flexors more, so let's maybe prop him this way. This one is actually got rib flare, so let's maybe lift their head up. This one's really struggling because they're very tight, and I can see they're really tight through the upper abs, so we may need to support them here. It's really just having that quick little thing, which, to be honest, does come with experience, but also comes with having a little bit more background knowledge too. That this is what tight hip flexors look like. This is how people will move if they can't move their pelvis. People with SIJ issues or pelvis issues are really going to be aggravated potentially if you do things like pelvic clock or you do single leg stuff, because they don't like that feeling. And also what presentations are for sacroiliac issues. So if people do have sacroiliac pain, what does it look like? It looks like they don't like lying on their back, and just giving them a bit of support might help. So that's the kind of thing that we're doing the support service for. If you're interested, we go live in the middle of July. We're just doing pre-launch at the moment. If you have any specific questions, it's not aimed at being a Pilates training, because there's so many out there. It's not aimed at that. It's aimed at, what do I do if this happens? Is there any other way to do this? If my client won't let go of their hip flexors, what can I do? If I have a problem doing this, what's a good thing? If I have a client with a shoulder bursitis, what do I do? If I have a client with a hip bursitis, what does that mean? Is there anything I should avoid? Is there anything I can advise them to do? There's a whole heap, and I generally see it as well, that there's so many personal trainers and people as instructors giving out things like, no, we'll release everything. Everything gets released because everything's tight and everything's overactive. And that's why we need to be careful of what are we releasing. Are we releasing stuff that's tight, as in it's short and it's lost mobility and we're trying to get mobility? Or are releasing things that are overactive and they're working too hard? Because there doesn't seem to be a lot of differentiation between the two. It's let's release it. It feels a bit hard and a bit tight, so let's release it. And is it tight or is it overactive? So that's the type of thing that we'll cover. Like I say, it'll be 24 hours access. We'll try and cover a topic a week. So unless it's a big topic, we might run it over 2 weeks. But we'll definitely have a little bit more structured stuff where this week we're covering disc issues. So we'll stick with disc issues. This week we're covering disc issues. Is there anything you'd like to know specifically? Any disc issues that you've had trouble with, and we'll answer them, and we'll do a live, and we'll try and do some sort of client demonstrations with some of our instructors as well. And that way we'll start getting a bit of a catalogue of things on a week-to-week basis that we actually teach you, and that you're able to interact with us with. And so if there is a question that you have, you can obviously post it and ask us. And that's how I'm planning on running it. If people are coming on board and they have some requests, then obviously we can change a little bit as well. I think it's the first one that we've seen or we've thought of doing this way. There's obviously lots and lots of sites, or lots and lots of sites, such as Pilates Anytime that you guys access for classes and class ideas and things like that. And so there's no point me going that route. That wasn't the intention. The intention was to be a support network for you specifically for guidelines on what you can do and can't do, specific to probably problem people or problem issues or stuff that is not generally taught, or stuff that you generally can't just look up, and stuff where I've got this client and they just won't do it. What can I do that could help them? And that's the sort of angle that we're coming in at. So the link, if you're interested, we go live very, very soon. It's just below in whatever format you're watching this. So if it's on Facebook, it'll be below in comments, and same on YouTube, it'll just be below our info section. And yeah, hook on the link. If you know anyone that's interested, or you think anyone that would benefit from this, then feel free. Obviously it's not just for you guys as Pilates instructors, it will work well for physios as well. It will work well for people who are generally in the exercise industry, for different things on what you need to know for contraindications, and also what different pathologies or injuries and everything implications. So we will probably also cover things like injuries in terms of what is one of the stages of healing. What does that mean? Is there anything where we need to be really, really careful on things? And what's the stages of healing for a grade 1 strain? If somebody comes in and says I've sprained my ankle as opposed to a grade 3, what does that mean? And then probably you'll get a little bit more understanding of why people do struggle, and why we say, look, we have to be careful for 2 weeks and work in this range only, and then 2 weeks work in this range only. And stages of healing is really important, especially if people do have things like bursitis. And obviously pain pathways. If people are in chronic pain, what does that mean? And what's going on in chronic pain that means that they can't move well. So yeah, we go live middle of July. If you're interested and you know somebody that could benefit, please feel free to pass on our information. Obviously, we're keen to get it off the road, and we're keen to get it sort of supported, and keen to get it out there, and keen to get it live. I have a mass of information in my head. I love teaching. I think it's fabulous, and it's great to be able to impart some of that knowledge. So from my point of view, if I can help one person be a better Pilates instructor or personal trainer or whatever it might be, and we can help another 10 people then move better, that is fantastic. And that's sort of the aim, that we have knowledge that we can share, and if we can share that knowledge in a good way for the greater good of how people move, and how it can enrich their lives and enhance how they work, then that's the aim. All right, so my name is Sylvie Hewlett. Our site will go live next month. It's July 2019. It will go live. Links below in comments. So hope to see you supporting.